I don't think most people, well, I don't think anyone can choose. I mean, before birth, a baby or a child can make a calculated decision as to where they want to be born or how they want to specifically look or what their ethnicity should be and so on. So I guess in some way, many of us we end up being, not end up, but we become who we are by default. Or maybe there's some more details from a knowledge standpoint that I don't know. But from a hypothetical standpoint, you can kind of see where you are who you are by default. It wasn't really a choice. It was really the consciousness of several factors coming together, several uneven things that cannot be explained that come together to create who we are, each of us. So today's topic is what being mixed race and Jamaican taught me. I'm Michelle Samuels for White Wolves ID, and really great to have you guys listening again. And I think I kind of struggled a little bit with whether or not I should actually put out this video and the relevance of it, what I've learned on the path, and how those things that I've learned have influenced what I'm doing now, as well as what I intend or hope to do. Now, I must say this to you that growing up, I knew I was mixed race, but I didn't, because I'm mixed race in that my mom's Indian and my dad's Jamaican. So Jamaican from African heritage. Now, I think from an early stage, being that I was in my family, most of my family members tend to be a bit lighter than I am. So at the earlier points in my story, I was like the black sheep of the family, so to speak. And I think I kind of carried that for a very long time. And um, without going too deep into the details, from an early in the time that I was growing up in my childhood years, there were a lot of issues around what color you were, or yeah, you were, what opportunities were presented to you, it would seem, how much preference would be shown to you on the basis of your ethnic background. These were like ideologies that were put forward, and also real life experiences of many individuals. Now, being from Jamaican culture, one would think that being mixed race is the normal order. And it was to a certain degree, but historically, we've had to overcome a lot of um, societal dramas, experiences, uh, projections, ideologies around who you are, how you look, and what are the determinants on the life path. Now, being that I was kind of like the black sheep in a little way, and I say the black sheep because we're talking about being mixed race. So, being that I was kind of like the black sheep, I was very cognizant to kind of move towards a particular ethnicity more than the other, it would seem. And it's ironic because my I think my shift in my experience was more towards my Indian side of my family. But being more towards the Indian side of the family and looking less Indian in my early stages in my life, because my features have actually changed quite a lot through the years. But moving from being more inclined to be around the Indian side of things and looking somewhat contradictory to what I should look like, it was quite an eye opener. It was an eye opener for me, and that I my eyes were open in terms of knowing that I was probably at a very big disadvantage and I'd have to work twice as hard or more in order to get the things that I needed to get out of life. That's what it would seem at the time. And this wasn't it's like something consciously that I thought about because it wasn't it wasn't something that a child would sit and worry about. So I wasn't worrying about it. I was just living because I had so many members within my family that I could interact with. We didn't have much time for looking at those things, but the external environment, it's almost like there was a lot of requirement for you to look more towards one ethnicity and less towards another. And there are some contradictions as well that I hope I remember to discuss as well because there are a lot of stigmas attached to not only Jamaicans but attached to the whole concept of Jamaicans who are from African heritage and their abilities to not the abilities in question in terms of their abilities to be very smart because Jamaicans on a whole, I mean, I've encountered quite a few who are very, very intelligent. And although we're still learning, I think it was preparation somewhat for the journey I was about to take, which I wasn't even aware of as a child that I would embark on as an adult. Now, being that my mom is Indian, um, I think she was fully aware of the challenges that I would have to face as well. And she would always instill certain values in me, I would say, which is that, always remember once you've used your head, your mind and your head is more powerful than what's on the external. I mean, other you would think that like from a parent standpoint that to suggest the harsh realities of life to your child is a difficult position to be in, but I think I got those harsh reality checks from early. So growing up, I never thought for 1 minute that I was beautiful. I mean, I never thought that I was ever at the right size. I always thought that, I needed to always be smaller or slimmer, or if I'm eating too much, I'm very conscious of that. But not to the degree where it's impacted me in a negative way, because over time it's taught me how to balance in terms of nutrition and so on, and also when to pull back, when not to do things in excess and so on. But let's continue on in the discussion of being mixed race. Now, I didn't even realize, like I knew I was, but it wasn't something that we had a discussion around until I got older and I was working for the airlines and somebody said something to me to imply that I was mixed race, and I was looking around thinking, who are they talking about? Because that couldn't really be me. Because I guess my experience had taught me for a very long time that I would be more focused on as being connected to my African heritage, which we didn't know very much about our African heritage because that story has been told so many times. But much of the story about our heritage and our family and so on was lost. and it was just basically a point of surviving, advancing, progressing, going against the stigmas, going against the odds. Because when my mom married my dad, it was like, I think, they went through a little bit of challenges in terms of being accepted as a mixed marriage, so to speak. So I think some of the things I learned from being mixed race as well is that, you tend to compare yourself a lot to others until you're at that level of consciousness of self. And in comparing yourself a lot to others, what is being pushed from the outside inward into your thought patterns, into your way of thinking, it kind of has a very high influence on your belief systems, and also a high influence on what you think you can accomplish, what you think you can overcome, irrespective of those factors or thoughts of others. Now, yes, because even in, I mean, going to high school and working for the airlines and so on, there, I mean, I always saw myself, because it was so obvious I was different from everybody else. I think not everybody else, but I was different. You know, um, I was always conscious. I was conscious subconsciously, and it's funny how you can be conscious subconsciously. But I did have um, I did have certain influences in my life from a family structure where I was always told that I can accomplish great things. And even if the environment sometimes contradicted that, I was always pushed to achieve great things. My external appearance wasn't to a certain degree recognized until after, when I became an adult. And when it was recognized, even when I was being told over and over that I was mixed race, I still wasn't fully aware of it. But after a time, my features really started to change somewhat. And I could actually see where my thought patterns were influencing some of the results of my physical appearance as well as my genes. It's so important to be careful what you think about and what you focus on. And if you don't want a specific outcome, don't think too much on it, because somehow it's easy to get that. But I think there was another side of the coin. There was like a disadvantaged feeling, but there was another side that tapped into, oh, I am mixed race. So at the end of the day, some people who would see that, they would see it as an opportunity to connect without there being any foundation or value to the connection. So it was like I had experiences along my path where people wanted to connect with other people or wanted to connect with me, but they weren't really connected. They were connecting from a base level. The profile, I was the one that fit the profile. So this is more so, I don't know, over time, yeah, as well. I fitted the profile, and as a result it made sense to be around me. And I didn't recognize, sometimes there's beauty in you but you don't see the beauty in you, because it wasn't it wasn't like somebody got up every day and said to you how beautiful you are. And sometimes people do see the beauty in you as well, and it's not acknowledged for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't taught to be acknowledged. Maybe it wasn't highlighted. Maybe the value of the beauty that is internal and external wasn't spoken about. So it was just not recognized as being anything worthy of speaking, of being acknowledged. But there's a very gray area there, because I think I developed a personality where if I see something beautiful, I'll say it's beautiful. If I see something that I think is worth admiring in terms of the qualities that somebody has, or physical appearance or whatever, I don't hesitate to come from a place where it's very genuine, and I'll say, oh, you look really beautiful today, without me feeling less than in any way, or feeling diminished, or feeling some sort of loss. So I guess it created in me a strength of character. So when the time came for me to travel abroad, or to explore the world, I think I developed a way of operating. The way of operating was to almost suppress my intelligence and tap more into what other people considered to be external beauty, or what other people wanted to connect with. And it wasn't a conscious thing. I'm just saying that when after reflecting on my life path, so I kind of, if you don't, it's like, if you don't realize that you're beautiful and nobody has told you that, and the people that come along on the journey, they don't tell you either, and maybe one or two people will say, oh, you're beautiful, and you don't consciously know it yourself. It Anybody can, not anybody, but people can come on the path and kind of manipulate your thought patterns, and they can also try and influence your judgment if you're not at a level of consciousness of self. So coming into an international community, because Jamaica in itself is a very diverse place. There are so many different cultures, so many beautiful people from different ethnicities and all that. So it was normal for me to a certain degree. Plus, being from a family that is from two different ethnicities, it was moving into a cultural environment with a mixture of different types of people was not a great challenge for me in my mind, because after a while I think I'd become so conscious of my own abilities in that no matter what, I knew that something good would come on the journey. I'd learned something, I was open to that, and I didn't have a I wasn't conscious about, if somebody's from, if they're Chinese, if they're Indian, if they're Arab, if they're this. I think I went into the environment kind of a bit naive, as well as just open in myself to learning from other people and understanding their ways of being, and understanding how people operated on the international front in an international environment. And look, I think I was less judgmental to people from, not less judgmental, I didn't really formulate an opinion about people and their ethnicities. Why? I think it was subconsciously embedded in me to almost protect other people from those experiences, because my own experience, I think, taught me that it's not a real good feeling when people look at the external appearance, whether it is beauty, skin color, it could be your external, what is put forward from an intellectual standpoint, but that's just what is put out on your, it could be your achievements, it could be anything at all. So I think I went into like the corporate environment at a time when just there were a lesser proportion of people from Caribbean or African background working in certain areas like the city and so on. But somehow, maybe it's because I was very genuine in my mindset and my thoughts. I was very open, knowing those things. I didn't have a consciousness with that. It didn't intimidate me. It didn't cause me to feel. I almost subconsciously felt like I was comfortable. And this is really ironic to have felt this way, because the reason why I felt like I was comfortable is because I maybe recognized my own power. So I had the power now within my own experience to say how I would respond to other people the same way that other circumstances and experiences had responded to me about my external appearance, whether it is from the viewpoint of it being advantageous or disadvantageous from the viewpoint of society. Now, like I said, this is a new environment, and we're talking about cultures from so many different backgrounds. We're talking about people from so many big different backgrounds, so many new things to learn. But the because you have a certain mindset, and this is not to suggest that there weren't experiences that occurred where at the forefront of those experiences was like a, a, a focus on the externals. It's almost like I had to fight to show that I was intelligent enough. Because sometimes when you're somebody's focused on the externals, you have to operate at a very high tangent to actually get their attention. And if you do get their attention, because the attention is moved to the fact that how is it doesn't align with the stigmas and so on. When you do get their attention, um, you have to be ready for the fact that what you're bringing to the table has value. So I think on a certain level, when I'm really thinking about it now, it really worked in my best interest, because there was less. Had I been more focused on my physical appearance, I would have been less focused on my mental abilities. Now, being fearless somewhat, because like I said, I learned from a very early age where to come, on what level to compete. It wasn't on the level of what the external. It was, what are you bringing to the table? So that even became my experience in dealing with people in corporate, in putting forward certain suggestions, in standing up and saying, okay, I'm not afraid to connect with executives. I'm not afraid to go upstairs. Who wants to meet this person? Who wants to do that? I was never during this time. I'm talking about where I was in the international arena now. I was never averse to speaking to someone on any level based on wealth, race, creed, knowledge level, anything at all. None of those stipulations in my mind created any blockages at all. But I must say that when coming into an environment with such a high level of competition and so many variations, because remember, you coming into an environment where there are people who are more towards a certain ethnic background or a certain physical appearance, so the competition is much higher. If your level of consciousness of self, or if you're not resilient, if you're not strong, this is natural human competition, even amongst those who it's a normal environment or where you're originally from. But there were a lot of assumptions about Jamaicans, I can say. It really highly depended on which environment you were in. I think I think being a Jamaican that's from a background of educated professionals, and that happened over time. Yeah. Um and coming to the UK in certain environments, it was a city, it was almost like you you it was almost like you were you were recognized you were recognized from a certain perspective depending on the environment you were in. So, having been in certain environments in corporate and so on, when I say corporate, I mean multinational corporations type environment. Um, Being in that type of environment, the perspective on it wasn't whether or not you were from here or you were from there, or it wasn't put forward or shown, but on a certain level, what were you bringing to the table? What value were you carrying in yourself? But from another standpoint, when there were assumptions about if you were in certain environments and you operated from an intellectual viewpoint, it was a contradictory. It was like, oh, you're Jamaican, so you must have an agenda. In that, one of the agendas is that you're looking for somebody to take care of you, especially as a woman. So some of the things that I faced in terms of challenges was being Jamaican, being mixed race, being a woman. And these are some of the and also what was my um financially, well, from a financial standpoint, or what is my family like, what are their earnings like, what knowledge is there about me. So I think what I've really learned, if I'm supposed to draw all of this together, is that it doesn't matter what environment you're in. It's necessary to see, first of all, to see the beauty in yourself before anybody else, because the world will come at you and tell you all kinds of things. It doesn't matter what race you are, it doesn't matter what size nose you have, it doesn't matter what your hair color is, it doesn't matter what shape face you have, it doesn't matter if you're fat, you're skinny, or medium size. It doesn't matter. What matters, first of all, is how you feel within yourself. And there are many times I was in myself, I did not feel that sense of self worth that I feel now. And it was reflective in my life, based on my decisions, based on embeddings and experiences that were outside of my control, but it was the reality of what I had to go through to get to the point of self realization, to get to the point. And when I say self realization, I mean that as a continuous a continuation at different levels. It doesn't matter how you've done your hair, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how much money you don't have. What's more important is what's on the inside. And that may be just a whole bag of rubbish, because you have to deal with the externals, but you have to remember that these are just labels that are put on people, and labels for grouping purposes, and there are so many details behind it that is completely irrelevant, because some of it cannot be influenced by just one mere person taking on that great challenge of changing the mindset of a whole society, even though it is possible. But sometimes we take on these endeavors to change the mindsets of the society or to change the perspective, but what needs to be altered is the perspective in ourselves. Because it doesn't have to be about whether you're mixed race or you're Jamaican or you're coming from. The question is, how do you view yourself? Yeah, how do you view yourself, and what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table, and how are you going to bring it to the table? Through how you view yourself. Because sometimes great opportunities can be in front of us, but because we believe what has been told to us on the life path, which wasn't our story, but we embrace it to be true, it influences so much of the direction and creates blockages in our own mind. And when opportunities show up, we are not equipped, not because we are not able to do it, we're not equipped because we haven't overcome those embeddings in our minds that are subconscious, things that we haven't totally dealt with in ourselves. And it's very difficult because some of these things that are in the subconscious mind can be sitting there latently from very early childhood. And when the world changes, we're still stuck in those mindsets because so many times over and 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 over again we've been told that, okay, if this is a specific way, it's not good. If you look a specific way, it's not good. If you don't do it this way that the society says, it's not good. And you don't see the individual beauty in yourself. If you stand in any one specific place, just take 5 minutes and stand in one specific place and look at all the people that have passed you in that 5 minutes and ask yourself, are they unique? And I'm sure the answer you'll come to is that each person is their own individual, even though so many people look the same. And that's the beauty of creation. That there are so many people in this world, but so many of us look so different. So these labels that are put on us for grouping purposes, for this reason, for that reason, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to receive this information? What will you refuse to accept? What is true from what is not? And how does it influence the value that you're bringing to the life that you want to live in this society, in this world? What are you going to give back to the world? What will you have to overcome within your own self? What will you have to overcome that was put on you that is not true? So I'm not gonna take too long on this video because we don't go over more than 30 odd minutes. But I'm Michelle Samuels for Why Goals ID, and I'm gonna close by saying, don't forget who you are, and who you are is very unique, and there's a reason for that. And in life, sometimes there are different challenges that we'll be faced with. It's not just physical appearance. Sometimes physical appearance is just one factor. It could be anything. It could be just you being you is offensive to somebody else because they're not like you or they want to be like you. So how you do receive information is important. How you process that information and what you give back to the world and what is subconsciously happening in your mind that you need to tap into to move to those next levels of progress, accomplishment, advancement, self-worth, self-actualization. And sometimes it means that you will probably have to do jobs, tasks, um, be quiet when you shouldn't have to be, act diplomatic when it's not suggested that you should be. But there comes a time when it's necessary to speak, and you have to ask yourself, how will your voice be heard without words or with words? So I'm Michelle Samuels for Why Goals ID. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you very much. We're growing on this channel. We're at 28,000 plus views. So almost at 30,000. Subscribers are growing as well. We just started in October and it's very exciting. What is very, very exciting. Now, I know that we've been looking at the self and the individual, and why was this video important? It's important because understanding your own self, your own value, and your own self worth is a part of the wealth analysis from a worth standpoint, because you can have the biggest net worth and the lowest self worth, and you can have the smallest net worth and the highest self worth. Which you choose is up to you, or you can have both: high self worth and high net worth. What are you going after? I know what I'm going after. I know what I hope for. But balance is very important as well, and what you want to give up to get to where you're going. You have to ask yourself, is it worth it? So I'm Michelle Samuels. Have a great week, guys, and keep listening. And don't worry, soon we're gonna move into some different versions of videos as well coming up, but we're tapping into the, the whole podcast, the